This is Dolany TV, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. This video coming into you live shortly after the SPLRV video, but coming up after a little bit of supper dinner time there for you. My friends, I did promise a Stuart Skinner video potentially if I got around time to it. And just looking over YouTube stats, I decided I could stop looking at numbers and start creating more numbers for myself. And we will talk Stuart Skinner in a brief moment. But folks, if you're new to the channel, I want you to take the rest of this video, consider hitting that subscribe button. I would love to have you along for this crazy Oilers season. So far, so good through 18 games or 19 games or whatever it's been, as the Oilers won last night against Vegas. Large part thanks to Stuart Skinner, who was able to hold on to take it to overtime and, of course, get us that Connor McDavid overtime winner that we have so often been missing so far this season in a couple games that we wish we could have taken to overtime, hence New Jersey. Anyway, friends, that's where we find ourselves today, is we're sitting here waiting for the next game to come around, and OilersNation puts out an article on a Sunday afternoon saying, man, wouldn't it be cool if Stuart Skinner won the Calder Trophy this year? And you know what? To a degree, there is a potential that Stuart Skinner wins the Calder Trophy this year. Because obviously he's having a pretty phenomenal start to the year. Third best in save percentage. Goals against average isn't too bad as of yet. But yeah, that's where it sits right now, right? Is now suddenly 20 games into the season, we can start talking about Mr. Stuart Skinner as a potential in that Rookie of the Year class that features like Matty Beniers. Logan Thompson, I think, also factors in there as a Rookie of the Year candidate. There's a ton of guys that factor in, and as it currently stands, Jake Sanderson's another. You can name the rookies all you want, but end of the day, it is kind of one of those situations for the Edmonton Oilers where, again, for the first time since, I guess you could say, Connor McDavid, we might have somebody in the contention in that top 3 slot for Rookie of the Year. Now, there's a lot that hangs on this, and this is why I'm not going to pull up graphics, pull up stats, pull up stuff like that for this argument when it comes to Stuart Skinner. I'm just more or less entertaining the idea and publicly talking about it from my perspective that the Oilers Nation brought up, because for Stuart Skinner, what's made mention in that Oilers Nation article quite heavily is games played. Games played. That's what got Connor McDavid. That's what got Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. That's, go back, whoever you want to say. And, of course, it's what's going to get Stuart Skinner if he indeed is not the season-long starter in front of Jack Campbell, who will be sitting on the bench. That's the problem here, right? Is Stuart Skinner can have all these fancy numbers, put up some really good numbers, but unless he has that games played factor where he is the starter like Logan Thompson in Vegas appears to be, it'll be tough to sit there and justify that Stuart Skinner is the Rookie of the Year just based on 26, 27 starts. In fact, I don't even think he'll get a sniff of top 5 voting if he only has 26, 27 games played for the Edmonton Oilers. So currently sitting at the record he does, the 4-4 or whatever it is, that's right, only 8 games in, you're 20 games into the season. Well, as it currently factors out, it could be a potential where Stuart Skinner has played 8 games times, 4, ends up playing 32 games. That's not enough to get him into the conversation. He'd need at least 45 to 50 games, kind of steady Eddie where he is right now to win the Calder Trophy over top of the people he's got to go against, right? Matty Beniers having a great start to the season. There's plenty of others. Logan Thompson having a much better start to the season than Stuart Skinner until last night. Last night kind of maybe changed things a little bit, but you got to remember Logan Thompson's got all those wins, and when everyone goes to defend Jack Campbell, it's about all the wins. So again, if you're voting for a trophy, it's probably the goalie that won more, right? So that's where we're sitting there talking about it, is for Stuart Skinner, is the wins will have to come. The stats will have to stay exactly where they are. That's the hard part. He's going to have to keep a league-leading kind of top 3 save percentage intact the whole season long if he wants to have any shots. So realistically, all I'm doing at this point of the video is talking down how probable it is that Stuart Skinner is the Rookie of the Year in the NHL. And that's because, simply put, that's what I see, is it is just impossible for Stuart Skinner to win the Rookie of the Year almost no matter how good he does because Jack Campbell will feature in at some point this season as a long length starter for 5-6 games in a row, and any duration where Skinner's out of the net for more than 3 games is going to disrupt any chance he has at winning the Rookie of the Year. So that's kind of the problem here for Skinner. Is he's going to have great numbers hopefully this year. He's going to put up a great season, but it's just not going to be a year where Stuart Skinner goes and runs with it. I have claimed Stuart Skinner as the starter, but the plan, I don't think, in Oilers land is to have Stuart Skinner as your starter start to finish this season and then in the playoffs as well. Now, that said, if he gets into the playoffs and wants to go win the Conn Smythe Trophy, that's a whole nother argument that we can get to when we get there, right? You got to get there to start having that argument. But for Stuart Skinner, I think the personal accolade would be the Rookie of the Year this season, but he would take just contributing to as many wins as he possibly can for his hometown Edmonton Oilers as possible. And I think, if anything, if I gotta pick right now, if by Christmas, once I get the reverse retro on the wall here, if by Christmas the Oilers do not have James Hamblin up in the NHL, I'll make you this promise here boldly. It'll have to be a Stuart Skinner jersey hanging up on my wall, that old 74 Skinner on the back. Because end of the day for the Oilers, this is the future in net. Whether you want to say Jack Campbell's the future in net, as I've said, Jack Campbell transitions to being a backup by year 2 or 3 of this deal of his, when the salary cap starts inflating enough that it doesn't matter that you're spending $10 million on goaltending just to have Skinner and Campbell together working for the next 5 years. So that's where we sit, right? I really don't see on leftover water from the World Cup stream earlier this morning. I really don't see in any world where for the Oilers they are going to have a Rookie of the Year this year. Dylan Holloway could have been in that conversation, but he has just kind of faded away into the nobody ground, right? He's had a couple assists, really hasn't had many flashes since the start of the season. Obviously, that big hit kind of derailed him, but as it sits, right, is Stuart Skinner's our best shot, and even at that, you do the math on it, you look at it as best you possibly can, and it just does not add up that Stuart Skinner is going to be the Rookie of the Year for the Oilers this season. I just don't personally think anyway. So that's where it currently sits right now, is friends. It's a great article for the Oilers Nation to put out. It's a great attention grabbing article to get us talking on a Sunday afternoon. Look at me, I'm talking about it, but at the end of the day, I just don't think it's very probable, and what it comes down to is exactly what they pointed out. The games played is the biggest factor in that situation, and for Stuart Skinner, it's going to be the biggest holdback on winning the Rookie of the Year, even if the numbers stay intact at this point to the rest of the season. Folks, I'm Tyson, this is Stolany TV. Thank you so much for tuning into the video. I hope you've taken that time to consider hitting that subscribe button. Like I said, love to have you along. And with that, friends, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Enjoy the Grey Cup if you're watching it right now. I am up on out of here.